माइक चेक. माइक चेक. माइक चेक. माइक चेक. येतोय व्हिडिओ आवाज एक थोडंसं बारीक. हां बारीक कर थोडंसं. माइक. माइक चेक. माइक चेक. हां हे बघ आता हे कॉलर माईक लावलं ना आवाज कमी येतो थोडासा वाढवायचा. आणि जर तो तिकडनं बोलत असेल ना कुठनं त्या पोडियम हां मी ॲडजस्ट कर मग ठीक आहे. पण तू कसं ॲडजस्ट करणार आतमध्ये उभारल्यावर तुला कसं कळणार आवाज कसं येतो. हां हां तो तिकडे असणार आहे बघ समोर. ठीक आहे. हां मग हे इकडनंच असंच उघडू अर्धं एवढं. तोपर्यंत चालू नाही होत. हां ठीक. ओके हा समोरच आहे या साईडला. हा कॉलर माईक लावल आणि माईक ॲडजस्ट कर ह्याच्या समोर आणि त्याच्याप्रमाणे. आणि मग ते सगळं झाल्यावरती इथं कोण जाणार.
I'll just wait for 2 minutes. They are coming from the T. Good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to one and all attending the 82nd CSIR Foundation Day event held at NCL. We are honored to have Shri Krish Gopalakrishnan, who has graciously accepted our invitation. I want to welcome our chief guest, Shri Krish Gopalakrishnan, Director NCL Dr. Ashish Lele, other dignitaries who have joined in person and online, my colleagues and the students to this celebration. I will now request our director, Ashish Lele, to address the gathering. Ashish.
Very good morning and namaskar. Our very distinguished chief guest for today's event, Shri Krish Gopalakrishnan. Many esteemed dignitaries who are attending the person here in person as well as online. Many colleagues who have come from NCL, outside NCL, my friends, and again dear students who are again some from NCL, some from outside. In particular, the colleagues who have recently superannuated, those who have completed 25 years of their service to this wonderful institution, and our meritorious students from the NCL staff. All of you, welcome, hearty welcome to this event today. We are here to celebrate the CSIR's 82nd Foundation Day event. Some of you would know that this event is actually celebrated on two occasions. 26th September is actually the Foundation Day, and normally the headquarters holds a large function in Delhi. This year also we had a very large event in the newly constructed Pragati Maidan or refurbished Pragati Maidan, and also the inaugural event happened in the very new Bharat Mandapam, where the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar awardees were felicitated. The 2021-22 awardees were felicitated. I had the privilege to attend it and also cherish the memory of two of our formal employees who were also felicitated because they won the Bhatnagar award. So it was a very nice moment for me to relive that. Every lab also celebrates the CSR Foundation Day, and so today in NCL, this is why we are here today. Now, 82nd year for an institution is not a very long time. 82nd is probably reaching the youth of the CSIR as an institution, but it might be a good idea to sort of reflect on how it all began. So it was in the 1920s. Some of the stalwarts of Indian science at that time, Meghnad Saha, Meghnadlal Sarkar, P.C. Ray, and many others were trying to influence the government at that time to create an organization that would help support the growth of Indian Indian industry in general at that time. And particularly, I'll read a quote by Dr. Mokshagandham Vishweshwaraya, who was the president of the Indian Science Congress in 1924. And in his presidential address, he said, and I quote, "An all-India centralized laboratory to help industries is an absolute desired thing today." So all of them sort of influenced the government to create some organization, and the government, under their recommendations and other reasons, created the first such institute called the Bureau of Scientific Research in 1938. Unfortunately, the war clouds were looming very large at that time, and the government decided to actually scrap the Bureau of Scientific Research. And of course, the file has to go through a government process, so it came to a bureaucrat who was a very, very visionary gentleman, and his name was Sir Arcot Mudaliar. and the file came to him for essentially scrapping the Bureau of Scientific Research. And what he said, and I quote again, he wrote on the file, the board, that is a BSR, should be abolished, not as a measure of economy, but to make room for a board of scientific and industrial research with vaster resources and a wider objectives. So, he had that ability to envision a much bigger organization at that time. And this is how the precursor of CSIR started. On April 14, 1940, the Bureau of Scientific and Industrial Research started. And in November that same year, they also funded it through an industry research fund. So very interesting ways of how this got started. And then the masterstroke came when Sir Arcot Mudaliar again converted BSIR into an autonomous society, and that is how CSIR was born. So he was really the architect of CSIR, and he also went to the person who practically built CSIR, who is our own Sir Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar, who was at that time a professor in Punjab University, and he was approached by Sir Arcot Mudaliar and convinced to leave that job and come and take over the director generalship of CSIR. Sir Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar said, and I quote again, when he took up the job, I dreamt of a chain of national laboratories where large teams of scientists work for the development of India and for the creation of scientific outlook on life among Indian masses. So that was the vision of Sir Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar. So CSIR was born like that, and over the years, this wonderful organization has done many remarkable contributions. In the 50s and 60s, practically the work was on nation building, creating the indelible links and things like that. In the 60s and 70s, it was supporting very major programs that India at that time was launching, such as the Green Revolution. In the 70s, it was about aligning along some critical policies, such as the pharmaceuticals policy and many such policies. So the first Swaraj tractor in India, manufactured in India, came up through CSIR at that point of time. Many technologies for pesticides and so on and so forth. The industries were actually set up, and this very laboratory had a major role to play in that. In the 80s, it was a lot of import substitution because it was an era of technology denials. And there were many technologies where CSIR labs contributed to substitute imported materials with our own indigenously developed materials. This laboratory also did many remarkable contributions, and many times I've told this story of how catalyst manufactured in tons in this laboratory actually replaced catalyst from a big multinational, actually Mobil, in the IPCL plant for xylene isomerization. So we did many wonderful things like that. In the 1990s era, when we went on as a country, we liberalized our markets, we opened our markets, globalization became a trend, and CSIR quickly turned itself and became an organization that worked with large multinationals who came into India. We started earning in dollars and euros, and at the same time made sure that we supported Indian industry to stay globally competitive, right? Indian industries were operating in protected markets. We made sure that they become globally competitive. And the story goes on. So CSIR over the years has truly made remarkable contributions. We do not recognize, we don't even, new generation probably doesn't even know many of the large contributions that CSIR has made. Every time you vote, and the next year is the voting time, the ink that will put on your finger has come from CSIR, just as an example. Sir Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar, when he started CSIR, also said that the scope of work of each laboratory of CSIR could perhaps be best described to be of the form of a continuous spectrum, at one end of which research work of purest academic type and of highest quality is carried out, and at the other, the technical development of processes and equipment to be done by stages. So he envisioned how science in the laboratory of the highest quality should be translated into product and process technologies. And again, I just want to cite an example from this laboratory, because we are here today, how this actually was done. So this laboratory, one of the finest directors of this laboratory, wrote down at that time 5 volumes of the chemistry of synthetic dyes. I'm talking of Professor K. Venkatraman. That treatise, 5 volumes of how synthetic dyes should be made, is today, of course, a textbook material. It's an encyclopedia, not just you know studied in India, but everywhere in the world. This is the most emphatic compendium of process chemistries for synthetic dyes, which is a huge market a huge manufacturing base in India today. And that wonderful science, which is accumulated in these 5 volumes, actually got translated into technologies. And at one point of time, there were 70 companies in India operating commercially, producing these kinds of materials based on technologies that were developed in NCL at that time. So how science translates into commercial operations. But I think every time we come to this celebration of our next year, one thing good about this organization, it always introspects, right? It is never complacent. It's never happy that we have done great things in the past and we become complacent. It's never like that. So there's always an introspection that happens, and I think it's a very, very healthy thing to do. And therefore we ask ourselves today, okay, where do we stand today? What is it that we are doing, and are we doing the right things? So to take this cue from the what I said previously, if you look at our scientific output, last year CSIR as a whole published about 6,000 odd papers, and about 24 of them were in the absolute top class journals. They are impact factor 25 and above. 4 of them came from this very laboratory. Now you can of course say that 6,000 is not enough for a large organization than CSIR, and one can argue about it, but I think we are doing reasonably good quality science. What bothers us is this industry academia interactions. NCL I think is okay. Still there's a lot of room for improvement, but across CSIR, if I look at the numbers, the percentage industry earnings are about 10 to 50%, ranging from lab to lab. It varies, but many labs are below 20%. The industry earning of the total R&D budget is even minimal. It's about 10 to 20%. So I think there is a lot more that we can do in terms of improving our industry interactions within CSIR. There are other metrics like how many startups created out of CSIR have today raised Series B investment. How many of our alumni are today successful businessmen, successful entrepreneurs. So these are many metrics that I think we should look at and see what is it that we can do even better. So there's clearly a gap. I think the first thing is to accept that there is a gap and there's more needs to be done. And then we start, why is there a gap? And I think from an industry perspective also, the amount of, and we talked about it yesterday in the discussion session, the amount of money that industry invests in R&D in India is far below what is the global average. And so I think that is something that industry needs to do. And also from a CSR perspective, we're rather slow in our operations. We worry about, is there a misalignment of our goals versus what the industry wants, and things like that. So these are things that for us in CSIR to ponder over. One important thing I think we should look at CSIR is how do we reposition ourselves in the emerging R&D ecosystem in the country. Today what do we have? We have fantastic academia and wonderful institutions. New institutions have come up. Right next door to us is our wonderful CSIR Pune, and I'm sure all of you, when you go there, you will see 5-star laboratories compared to our 75-year-old laboratory, right? So we have great academia that is coming up in the country. More IITs getting set up. There is this amazing explosion of startup ecosystem in this country. Young entrepreneurs who are hungry, who are agile, who have a great drive and a very sharp focus. I think that's a great ecosystem, that we have today in this country. And then we have, as Deshpande says, nano to micro to small scale industry. From few tens of lakhs to few thousand crores kind of companies. We have mid-cap industries ranging from, let's say, roughly 500 crore to 10,000 crores or more, and then we have the very large corporates. So we have all of this, R&D ecosystem, and the question to be asked is, where does CSIR fit in? What is our strategic repositioning in this emerging ecosystem? Where is it that we can work with all of them? And I think there are many thoughts that I have. I'm not going to go through all of them. But I think what we really need to also look at, other than repositioning, is essentially a rebooting of our systems. We need to have what Dr. Mashelkar very beautifully articulated for CSIR, stirring up of CSIR. He coined these 4 things, STIR. The S stands for speed, scale, and sustainability. The T stands for technology, talent, and trust. I stands for integration, innovation, and inclusiveness. And R stands for reimagining, rebuilding, and repositioning CSIR. In his article, he has elaborated on each of those 4 attributes. And I think we need to look at these things very seriously. There are new models that are emerging which CSIR should look at. We are always struggle with taking technologies beyond TRL5. How do we move from TRL5 to TRL9, which is what most of the industry wants? If we are not fit to do it, are there new models that CSIR can create? And CSIR has done it in the past. We are one of the first in the country to create a startup incubator in the country. Back 15, 16 years ago, when incubators were not even known, we were one of the first to create it. So CSIR is known to build new models that are required at that period of time. And maybe it's time to also consider building new models, maybe new Section 8 companies that can do only translational work. And there are models such as these available from outside India that we can learn upon. The other, as I said, is the startup ecosystem, a very vibrant ecosystem that also takes technologies from low TRL all the way to commercialization. So these are vehicles available for CSIR, and I'm sure that with the vibrancy of CSIR and the attitude that we have, which is not to being very complacent, we will re-innovate, we will reposition ourselves, we will reinvigorate that enthusiasm in our labs and make sure that we stay very, very relevant in this emerging ecosystem. I'm sure that is going to happen. At NCL, we are doing everything possible that we can in this, and I'm sure there is still much more that we can do. So with that, I just wanted to bring this kind of thoughts to your mind, and we look forward to working with CSIR, contributing immensely to CSIR, and making sure that our own lab stays one of the best in CSIR and also within this country. Thank you so much for your attention. I'm going to hand it over to Sarika.
Thank you, Ashish, for sharing your thoughts. And with the motto of having industry-academia collaboration, I guess our chief guest today is the right person to talk about it. We will hear from him. Before we hear from him, let me introduce Krish Gopalakrishnan, a very well-known personality, and introducing him in 5 minutes is daunting. If we mention what is documented in Wikipedia and other websites, it will consume all the time we have here for today's program. So instead of that, I would like to touch upon some of his qualities which probably are not written down, but I came to know when I heard him speak about his journey in life yesterday. And I found what makes him stand out is his unique ability to reinvent himself over and over again. Probably that's not how he describes himself, but that's how I thought it is. He initially planned to study medicine, but went on to study physics. Then while doing masters in physics in IIT Madras, a chance encounter with Professor Mahabala, well-known computer scientist there and head of the department, led him to do MTech in computer science from IIT Madras, and this defined the later part of his journey. After his MTech, he began his career as a as a software engineer with Patni Computer in 1979, and very quickly, like by 1981, they co-founded Infosys with 6 other entrepreneurs. He described himself as a nerd yesterday, but he also said he pushed himself to take up other responsibilities and served as the CEO and managing director, followed by being the vice chairman at Infosys. So you can see how a person who is a nerd goes on to do this other, takes up these other roles. Mr. Gopalakrishnan invests in promoting research in brain sciences. He does it very passionately. He also talks about aging related disorders as well as invests in startups and startup ecosystems. Currently, he is the chairman of Acceler Ventures, an accelerator that helps startups during the early stage of their business journey. Mr. Gopalakrishnan is the chairman of Itihas Research and Digital, which publishes the history of Indian IT industry, which is one of the biggest industry in India now. Krish Gopalakrishnan has served in leadership roles in the industry and also in several research and in educational institutes. That's the reason I said he is the best person to speak about industry academia collaboration. Some of the key positions are, and I'm going to read only a few because it's a very long list. He was the president of India's Apex Industry Chamber, CII, co-chair of the World Economic Forum, member of the Board of Governors of the Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology, chairman of the Council ISC Bangalore, chairman Board of Governors of IIIT Bangalore, member of DBT Wellcome Trust, Nanyang professor at NTU Singapore, trustee of the Infosys Science Foundation. In January 2011, the government of India awarded Mr. Gopalakrishnan the Padma Bhushan, the country's third highest civilian honor. With this very short introduction, I now request our director, Dr. Ashish Lele, to formally welcome Krish Gopalakrishnan. Welcome Krish Gopalakrishnan to share his thoughts.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and thank you, Dr. Ashish Lele, for inviting me to the CSIR Foundation Day. It's my privilege to be here and to address you, to interact with you, share my thoughts with you. As I was listening to Dr. Ashish Lele, I realized that many of the things that I want to say have been actually part of CSIR's vision over the years. And you know, the purpose for which CSIR has been set up, you know, the STIR that you talked about, STIR, right? So clearly, you know, this is part of the DNA. All of us need to introspect and reinvent ourselves periodically to stay relevant, to also, you know, renew our goals in life, purpose in life, renew, you know, ourselves as that, as I say, stay relevant. And I'm happy to be part of that. You know, you said, you know, on the foundation day, you introspect and think about future. So hopefully, some of my thoughts will stir some ideas in your minds also. You know, at the beginning of the 20th century, US was about 1.9% of the global GDP. And at the end of the 20th century, US was 19% of the global GDP. So in a period of 100 years, they went from a very small economy. In those days, UK, Europe, etc., were much larger economies, to become the largest economy in the world. And from my read and knowledge, the first part of the 20th century was about manufacturing, automating manufacturing, the factory concept of manufacturing. And of course, the two world wars helped them accelerate their growth. They were the factories that produced all the defense equipment required during world wars, etc. And they kind of saved Europe. In the second half was primarily driven on digital computer and technologies derived from digital computer, and almost everything that we can think about in the digital computer revolution came primarily from the research that US has done, and basically from few institutions. It's not a large number of institutions, and a handful of institutions had a big role to play. But the digital computer revolution, created successive generations of computing models or paradigms. The mini computer, the personal computer, the mobile phone, created the entire space of networking, internet, social media, and today when you look at the US economy, and one measure is to look at market cap, right? The top 7 companies by market cap are all companies that are 50 years or less in age. That means they were created in the last 50 years. And they dominate that space. And these are companies that you all know: Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet or Google, Amazon, Tesla, companies like these actually, NVIDIA, Meta, which is Facebook. But they came out of nowhere actually and created an industry, created faster growth of the economy, accelerated growth of the economy, and I believe these are the drivers that took US from 1.9% of the global GDP to 19% of the global GDP. The reason I say this is India is yet to develop. We are today about 3.6 trillion. By sheer size of the number of people and the economy, we are 5th largest, and over the years we expect to become the 3rd largest. We expect to go from $3.6 trillion to maybe 5 trillion, 10 trillion over time. Now, can we accelerate this? Can we become, let's say, instead of 10 trillion, $30 trillion, right? I believe it is possible for us to do that. In 1992, India was $600 billion in size. Today we are 6 times growth in about 30 years. So it is possible. It is possible, and if you look at the last 30 years, some of the drivers for growth is one is the telecom industry, second is our automotive and manufacturing, of course the IT services industry, which has become now 7-8% of the Indian economy, and so we can actually look at what drove this growth to become a $3.6 trillion economy in the last 30 years. Now, do we have the opportunity to drive growth? I believe so. It does require. So telecom industry is in some sense a new industry. Automotive industry, by and large, again new. Of course, IT services industry grew in the last 30 years. 1992, we were probably about $150 million in total revenue, the entire industry. And today it's 220, $230 billion. So you can really create high growth engines in their economy, high growth engines in the economy. The last 30 years, we created these through entrepreneurship, through creating new businesses, probably, and new business models. And business models are equally important, but probably not based on our own IP, our own technology, product, etc. And I believe that if we look at the next 30 years, there is an opportunity to build this growth engine based on our own products, technology, IP, etc. At least if we attempt, we will create a few shoots that blossom to large trees and create an accelerated growth for the economy. In the last 7-8 years, from 2014 onwards, we have created a very robust and dynamic startup ecosystem. Very short period of time, now of course 10 years. But very short period of time, we have created a very robust and dynamic startup ecosystem, which is the third best in the world. It's attracting huge amount of investment into the startup ecosystem. Startup by definition is high risk, only few survive, etc. There are about 100 plus unicorns, and depending on which year you look at, it's attracting 25 billion to maybe 10 billion, or 10 billion to 25 billion dollars of investment into a high risk endeavor. Startups are very much needed because these are going to be the future multinational corporations. Startups grow faster when they're small, so it gives a momentum to the growth to the economy, and then I ask the question, and these are primarily driven by young entrepreneurs, people who have just graduated from college, etc. So if young entrepreneurs, founders, can create a very robust engine for growth, attract significant investments in a very short period of time, and create the third largest ecosystem, the next engine, if you want to create products, technologies, IP, etc., it has to be built on R&D. So can our R&D ecosystem generate similar investment, globally generate similar investment, be globally competitive, be capable of creating an additional or a extra engine of growth for the economy? Because these are required if you want to go from growing to a 10 trillion to a 30 trillion. So can we create this high growth engine through our R&D ecosystem? I believe we can and we should, because the people are the same, right? The same genetic pool, same educational system, same ecosystem, environment, etc. Is creating the startup ecosystem, and of course the Indian industry is created by the same pool of people. So can we leverage this talent to create the engine, R&D engine that will create a ecosystem that creates products, IP, technologies that will drive growth. There are other advantages that I see, and I list some of them. First and foremost, since India is a lower cost economy, our per capita income is still around $3,000. The cost of talent is significantly lower. I tell philanthropists as I meet philanthropists from outside the country, if you spend $5 on research anywhere in the world, especially in developing economies, and you're willing to spend $1, or in better at, we will find somebody to fund that $1 in India, but let's work collaboratively, we can double the research output. So just by adding 20% extra investment into R&D, we can actually double the research output. I think some philanthropies are now starting to listen to this and wanting to invest in India. India represents 20% of the world's population. So if you're going to do R&D elsewhere and not look at whether that solution will work in India, you're missing out on 20% of the world's population, especially when it comes to healthcare and things like that. Or when you look at climate change, right? You have to find solutions that will work in India. So again, another reason why you need to invest in R&D in India. India represents the diversity which is not available anywhere else in the world. In terms of the language, in terms of culture, in terms of food habits, in terms of literacy, nutrition, any dimension of diversity that you can think of, it's represented in India. Again, I believe that diversity brings specific inputs into the R&D process. Again, very, very relevant if you want to bring global solutions to global solutions from R&D and things like that. So for example, yesterday I was saying, when US came out with the vaccine, it was $30 per dose. When India came out with the vaccine, it was $3 per dose, right? That perception of affordability, cost, etc., is very much built into our culture because we are a low-cost economy. The other aspect is the largest STEM pool in the world, or one of the largest, and probably in the near future we will be the largest STEM pool in the world. Science, technology, engineering, mathematics trained students. We will be actually, though 20% of the world's population, 25% of the STEM talent in the world will come from India. Again, that's the reason why global multinationals come to India for their R&D. If you look at Pune, if you look at Bangalore or NCR region, whole city is dotted with R&D organization of multinational corporations. The second or third largest employee count is in India for almost any multinational corporation. Intel long back had a ad which said Intel Inside. We can now say that India Inside in everything that we use, because there is a contribution from somebody in India in the design, development, or research in the products that we use today. Again, why we can do global R&D here in India. Our talent is also now global in its outlook and thinking, and many of the people are actually trained abroad. They use most advanced equipment. With internet and with money, we can buy the best of the equipment, latest in technology, all of these things. So I feel that India can be the R&D location for the world and should be the R&D location. And can we now design, develop in India for the world, from India to the world? And I think we should think about, when we do R&D now, that we are actually doing this for the world. And I think there is a important role that India can play in actually solving the largest problems that world is facing. Cure for cancer, cure for neurodegenerative diseases, climate change issues and things like that, or moving from fossil fuel to renewable energy sources. These are areas where India can and should contribute. You know, we have the talent, we have the size of the talent, we have the lower cost, we have training, we have the ecosystem. We should do it, right? I feel that we can do that, and if we own that IP technology product, we will see faster growth for our economy. We will see us becoming second or third or maybe the largest economy in the world over the next 30 years. And it's very exciting to be a student today, because you are going to actually be the person or the team that builds this India. One more reason I think India must actively participate in R&D is the 20th century of models that US primarily drove have left us with all the problems that we are faced with today. Issues related to climate change, using fossil fuel to drive the growth, you know, harming the environment and things like that. Inequitable growth, right? Disparity of income is very high. Social cohesion is actually at a breaking point, and we are now seeing wars. You know, a war in Europe was unthinkable. Now, after Second World War, you know, we thought we have put wars behind us in Europe, but you have a war in Europe. So I feel that, and the affordability, you know, creating products for the 8 billion people of the world. I think India has an important role to play in creating products for the 8 billion people of the world. That we can be the R&D laboratory for the world to create new models that will support the 8 billion people, create products for the 8 billion people in the world. A good example is UPI. Now, we didn't follow any model from anywhere in the world. We created our own model, which is philanthropy and government creating a digital public good, and on top of that, innovation happens, built on the India stack. Right? We created a level playing field, and of course, people can still innovate, and so it's a very different model, and that is why India has probably 10 to 15% of the people owning credit card or debit cards, but 80% of the people can do digital transactions. A vendor on the roadside has a QR code and can accept payment digitally, right? Zero cost, instantaneous, real time. So we can create innovations that can go global. Okay? There is a program called MOSIP, Modular Open Source Identity Program, which is an open source implementation of UID. This is being implemented in 11 countries as we speak: Philippines, Morocco, Ethiopia, countries like that. Again, the developing countries. They all want to implement identity programs so that they can, on top of that, build systems like UPI, systems like direct benefit transfer, systems that allows digitization of the economy. This program is completely built on open source code. The code is free to download from the internet. It typically, and there is no charge for the software, typically implemented by system integrators of the choice of the country that's implementing. So each of the country is using different system integrator to do this. It's housed at IIIT Bangalore in an academic institution, and it's going global. World Bank is supporting it, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is supporting it, and some of the Indian philanthropists are supporting it. Again, an example of an innovation from India going global. So products, technologies, business models, we can be the source for innovation for the world, and big innovation for the world, which can impact 8 billion people in the world. bringing new models for development, etc. India has to come out with a new model for development. We cannot afford to develop like US or using the 20th century model of development. We will harm the ecosystem, harm the environment, and we will leave the world a worse place than ever before. The other reason why I believe that we have a very unique opportunity is because of the disruptive technologies that are coming to fore. I am part, Anand Deshpande is here, and probably there are other people here who are part of the IT, digital computer revolution, which created the industries that we are part of. And we had kind of the ringside view of how digitization, digital computer can empower the individual, transform businesses because businesses became digitized, and very large industries, very large companies were created, built on digital computer. It's changed the status quo. Now, every new generation of technology that comes in creates new leadership. So in the mainframe era, it was primarily IBM. In the mid-range computer, it was companies like Digital Equipment Corporation, etc. In the PC era, it was Compaq, Dell, people like that. And then came, in the PC era, Microsoft, HP. Now, of course, Google, Amazon, Meta or Facebook. New leadership is created because the technology change allows new leadership to emerge. Now, with ChatGPT, GPT-4, generative AI, your OpenAI, right, as a new kid on the block. And there probably will be other companies that will emerge as leaders. So when there is a technology disruption, there is space for new leadership to emerge because the status quo gets disrupted, new opportunities arise, and it's typically the startups that bring these technologies to the market because they have the ability to attract risk funding. An existing company has to use its income generated through its operations for doing R&D, and it will limit its ability to take risk. So it's typically a startup that brings disruptive technologies to market, and these companies, some of them will survive to become the multinational corporations. And that's what I said, no? All the companies in the US by market cap, the largest ones, are all companies which are less than 50 years old. So we have a slew of disruptive technologies in front of us today. It's amazing the number of disruptive technologies that are going to impact, which will have significant impact on our life, on businesses, on how we live, how we work, everything that we can think of. I have seen some of this, lived through some of this, but today's youth are going to live through even more disruptions, and life will be completely different. Starting with space and satellite to, the computing revolution is not over. With quantum computing, I feel that again a paradigm change will happen. New problems can be addressed through this. mRNA technology, again, how you can actually use software like code to actually program these molecules and get them to do stuff inside your body, immunotherapy, again reprogramming your immune cells and things like that. So you're using the paradigm of programming now living organisms, etc., or protein molecules, stem cell technology. And then there, I talked about satellite space, etc., robotic drones, autonomous vehicles, transition to electric or other fuels. So the significant, and the entire space of sensors, IoT devices, and things like that. We went from mainframe to mid-range to PCs to mobile phones to pervasive computing, right? Ambient computing, invisible computing, there's sensors and computers everywhere. It's part of the environment itself. And you can even think about programmable nanocomputers, etc. So, I'm just only telling you some of the things that are there in the horizon. But what I mean by this is that there is a huge opportunity to create new businesses, huge opportunity to create new technologies and products, huge opportunity to change the way we work, we live, and hence a new opportunity to create new leadership, not just for companies, create new industries, and I believe new leadership in nations. Again, I come back to how US dominated the digital computer space in the second half of the 20th century. We have the opportunity to do that. And this requires us to be very bold, very strategic, think big, courageous in our R&D efforts. Everything is there for us. It's amazing how, starting with talent, all the ingredients that are necessary and challenges, problems to be solved, new models to be created, a new economy to be created. Everything is there in front of us today. Yes, we can say maybe, we need more funding, but funding will happen. And that's the learning I have from the startup ecosystem. Where did that money come from? Because they were able to sell their ideas and they were able to convince the investors to put the money. Remember that 9 out of 10 investments do not make money. They lose the money. But the startups were able to convince them to invest that money. Of course, few investments get you, huge returns, exponential returns. But initially, you are losing money because these failing startups get shut down, etc. Investors still are investing in the Indian startup ecosystem. I want us to think about R&D like the startup ecosystem. I want us to be bold and think big and also increase our storytelling, selling, motivational, stories about how, and I was very pleased to hear about the NCL story, and we had visionary leaders, the names that you talked about in the beginning, and they were all storytellers. They were able to convince people that this is the way India should invest in technology, India should invest in R&D, etc. Again, it is really amazing how few people made a huge difference. When I was writing the story of Indian IT, I came across a note prepared by Homi Bhabha. 1947 or 48, he went to Cambridge, and he got a demonstration of a computer there. He came back to TIFR and said TIFR must actually create a computer group. TIFR must get into developing and manufacturing computers. In fact, they created something called TIFRAC, TIFR Advanced Computer or Advanced Calculator. I forget what C stands for. TIFRAC. And TIFRAC in those days was as powerful as the most powerful IBM computer. But we didn't take it forward. We didn't transfer the technology to industry and start manufacturing these things. Somehow or other, we started focusing on software and went into another direction. Wipro, for example, developed the first multi-user version of Linux in the world. Multi-user version of Linux, because India had a requirement to use the PC as a multi-user machine. So the constraint forced us to innovate, and they developed the first multi-user version of Linux in India. Right? So we can do these things. And that's the message I want to leave you with. I want you to think about bold initiatives in R&D. I want you to believe in our capabilities. I want us to together influence the ecosystem to support R&D, fund R&D. Industry has to do a lot. And this audience, primarily I'm feeling is from academia and research, etc. Similar forum at CII or industry bodies, I talk about why they need to increase their investment 15 times in R&D. Why they need to support academic R&D. If you are able to support a startup and again willing to lose a lot of money, why are you not willing to lose money on R&D? Right? We have to do this. So that's what I tell our industry friends, and it will benefit the company, the industry, and India. And this is again my learning from the IT services industry. We didn't build individual companies, we did do that. We built an industry, and we made that the largest services industry in the world. High quality, creating 5 million jobs, bringing in $220 billion of revenue, mostly export. 7% of India's GDP, about 20% of India's exports. We did it in a short period of time, and we figured out, when there were no resources, we started training. We started our own corporate universities to create computer science people. We invested in quality, and we demonstrated that India has the best quality certifications. We created HR policies to attract the best and the brightest. So much so that a civil engineer or a mechanical engineer wanted to join the IT industry. Right? We use the financial markets as a competitive weapon. We did this, and together we created that industry. When there was a challenge in the industry, again we worked together to solve the problem. So, industry has an important role to play, and industry must play that role. But it's together, as an ecosystem, we need to do these things. And I feel this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We have 30 years where we have this demographic dividend. We have the largest STEM talent. We have now a window of opportunity. Problems are there. Nobody has the solutions. We can build those solutions. And there are many other areas where we can build a solution. I personally am looking at brain sciences and things like that. Again, nobody has the solutions. We can build these solutions. I just want to briefly talk about one more point, and then I'll stop. My experience has been that we can bring experts from other parts of the world to seed a new field, to build a team around them. So I have chair professors I've created at IIT Madras and IISc, and now today in the area of brain sciences, there are about 40 people doing research at IIT Madras and 40 in IISc. Different things they're doing, but we have created a large group working in brain sciences, neuroscience, etc. We are getting funding support now from outside. Again, evangelizing this, telling them why they should invest in India, right? Invest in Indian research, etc. We need to support postdoc fellows in a big way, because they have the ability to do the a lot of the research work at lower cost, right? And fully focused on just doing research. We need to get guaranteed funding for research. I'm trying in my own way. We have to think about translational research in a big way. And translational research, as NCL has the capabilities, but bulk of Indian academic and research institutions do not have the translational research capabilities. We need to systematically build this, actually. And there are systems and processes that we can follow, tools that we can follow. So it's not something that is magic. It is something that is to be developed and systematically trained to actually build this translational capabilities. We need to create what NCL has done, a translational research department, an IP department, IP monetization, sales and marketing, a business development function which brings in the funding. So we can, we can do these things, and researchers need to be trained on who is the customer, where is the societal need, what is a problem that is relevant to society, what is customer discovery, price discovery. These are processes that we can, capabilities that we can teach and train, etc. And I feel that, again, something that we can do to accelerate not just the research but the translational work that is being done. This is a problem in the US also. It's not that it is not that there are a large number of institutions doing that. There are only a handful of institutions that are doing that. They have a focused approach to doing these things, and again we can do this in few places to make that indeed happen. Deep tech startups are very, very important. That's where the IP and products, technologies are created, which creates disproportionate returns on the investment on people that we make. Today, India, out of the 100,000 startups, has 3,500 deep tech startups. This is the data from DST. Very small number, and we need to grow that significantly. I take some liberty with IIT Madras, my alma mater, so they don't mind me being provocative. So in one of the meetings like this, I asked, how many of you are millionaires to the professors? Don't have a mindset that you have to sacrifice because you're a researcher or a professor. You can also make money. So be an investor in a startup, do a startup, etc. These are things that we need to do it. And I feel that we have opportunity to make in India for the world products, technology for the 21st century, and make this India's century. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris Gopalakrishnan, for this wonderful insight and letting us know how we shouldn't be a follower in R&D of the West, but invent our own R&D, because our problem statements can be very different. And also with our problem statement, we can provide probably better solution for the world too. So with that, I would now like to request our director, Dr. Ashish Lele, to present him a book and a painting by one of our fellow colleagues. We now move to the next leg of the program, which is to felicitate our staff and meritorious students of NCL staff. For that, I invite Dr. Swati Chadda to anchor the program.
I just request all of you to please remain seated. We are felicitating people who have contributed immensely to this organization. I would like all of you to join me in complimenting them. So please stay for another half an hour in this very important part of the event. Thank you.
नमस्कार, सुप्रभात। आज के कार्यक्रम के प्रमुख अतिथि और हमारे माननीय निदेशक, यहाँ उपस्थित प्रत्येक सम्मानित जन, आप सभी को CSIR के स्थापना दिवस की बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं, बहुत बहुत बधाइयाँ। और हमारे कार्यक्रम का एक महत्वपूर्ण पड़ाव जिसमें हम हमारे जो पिछले वर्ष रिटायर हुए उन कलीग्स का सम्मान करते हैं, साथ ही CSIR की सेवा में 25 वर्ष पूरे होने पर सम्मान करते हैं। तो इस कार्यक्रम की शुरुआत करना चाहूँगी। सबसे पहले आमंत्रित करती हूँ श्री PR चिटनविस जी को जिन्होंने 25 वर्ष पूरे किए हैं हमारे CSIR जैसे महत्वपूर्ण संगठन में। जोरदार तालियों के साथ अभिनंदन। बहुत बहुत बधाइयाँ। और इसके उपरांत श्रेणी है जो सितंबर 2022 से लेकर अगस्त 2023 के दौरान CSIR की सेवाओं से सेवानिवृत्त हुए हैं। सम्मान सहित बुलाना चाहूँगी डॉक्टर विलास हरी राणे, सीनियर प्रिंसिपल साइंटिस्ट, डॉक्टर विलास हरी राणे, श्री सुनील जोशी, चीफ साइंटिस्ट, श्री सुनील जोशी, श्री शकूर मोहम्मद शेख, प्राइवेट सेक्रेटरी, इसके उपरांत श्री प्रकाश भुजंग जी तैयार रहें। श्री प्रकाश भुजंग जी, सीनियर टेक्नीशियन 2, श्रीमती संध्या सुड़गे, प्रिंसिपल टेक्निकल ऑफिसर, श्रीमती संध्या सुड़गे, श्री गिरी लल्लन, ग्रुप C&T, श्री M शेखर, फाइनेंस एंड अकाउंट्स ऑफिसर, श्री भगवान दत्तू महाले, लेबोरेटरी असिस्टेंट, श्री भगवान दत्तू महाले, लेबोरेटरी असिस्टेंट, उनके परिवार से श्री SC मिश्रा, असिस्टेंट स्टोर कीपर कम मैनेजर, अनुपस्थित, श्री K रंगनाथन, कैंटीन क्लर्क, श्री सुंदर मूर्ति, लेबोरेटरी असिस्टेंट, तालियों में कमी नहीं आना चाहिए। श्री सुंदर मूर्ति। इसके पश्चात श्री जानेश्वर वाल्मीकि जी, ग्रुप C&T, श्री जानेश्वर वाल्मीकि जी। इसके पश्चात श्री भीमराव किशन केदारी, लेबोरेटरी असिस्टेंट, श्री भीमराव किशन केदारी। इसके उपरांत श्रीमती आशा बदर जी तैयार रहेंगी। श्रीमती आशा बदर, सीनियर स्टेनोग्राफर, श्री गणेश तुकाराम माने जी तैयार रहें। श्री गणेश तुकाराम माने, सीनियर टेक्नीशियन 2। श्री सुदाम जोगदंड जी तैयार रहें। इसके उपरांत श्री सुदाम रामा जोगदंड, प्रिंसिपल टेक्निकल ऑफिसर। डॉक्टर नीलिमा नितिन बुलक, प्रिंसिपल टेक्निकल ऑफिसर। डॉक्टर नीलिमा नितिन बुलक, प्रिंसिपल टेक्निकल ऑफिसर। इसके उपरांत श्री प्रदीप सिद्धेश्वर जी तैयार रहें। श्री प्रदीप दिगंबर सिद्धेश्वर, प्रिंसिपल प्राइवेट सेक्रेटरी। श्री राजू ध्यानोबा तीखे, लेबोरेटरी असिस्टेंट। राजू तीखे जी अनुपस्थित हैं। श्री रामचंद्र राजाराम पाटने, लेबोरेटरी असिस्टेंट। श्री पाटने जी। श्री दामोदरन जी तैयार रहें। श्री दामोदरन, लेबोरेटरी असिस्टेंट। इसके उपरांत श्रीमती सुजाता देशमुख जी तैयार रहें। श्रीमती सुजाता शिरीष देशमुख, असिस्टेंट सेक्शन ऑफिसर। पीवी अय्यर जी तैयार रहें। श्रीमती सुजाता शिरीष देशमुख, असिस्टेंट सेक्शन ऑफिसर। श्री पीवी अय्यर जी, प्रिंसिपल प्राइवेट सेक्रेटरी। श्री पीवी अय्यर, प्रिंसिपल प्राइवेट सेक्रेटरी। श्री एसएस देव जी तैयार रहें। श्री एसएस देव जी, सीनियर टेक्निकल ऑफिसर। डॉक्टर शांता कुमारी तैयार रहें। डॉक्टर शांता कुमारी बी, सीनियर प्रिंसिपल साइंटिस्ट। इसके उपरांत श्री राजू मन्नू स्वामी तैयार रहें। श्री राजू मन्नू स्वामी, ग्रुप CNT। इसके उपरांत डॉक्टर सार मुल्ला तैयार रहें। श्री राजू मनु स्वामी। डॉक्टर सार मुल्ला, सीनियर प्रिंसिपल साइंटिस्ट। श्रीमती शोभा भोंडवे। श्रीमती शोभा भोंडवे, असिस्टेंट सेक्शन ऑफिसर। श्रीमती शोभा भोंडवे, असिस्टेंट सेक्शन ऑफिसर। इसके उपरांत 2 पुरस्कार ऐसे हैं हमारे जो कलीग पिछले वर्ष के दौरान जो स्वर्गवासी हो गए, तो उनके परिवारजनों को बुला के उन्हें सम्मानित करना चाहेंगे। लेट श्रीमती पूजा महेश कुंभार जी, जो एक्स टेक्निकल ऑफिसर हैं रही हैं, उनके परिवार से, पूजा महेश कुंभार जी के परिवार से कोई उपस्थित है तो सादर आमंत्रित हैं। स्वर्गीय श्री शैलेंद्र कुलकर्णी जी के परिवार से, जो कि हमारे अकाउंट सेक्शन में सेक्शन ऑफिसर थे, असिस्टेंट सेक्शन ऑफिसर थे, उनके परिवार से कोई हैं? ठीक है, ठीक है। और इसके बाद श्रेणी है हमारे जो कलीग्स हैं, उनके बच्चों को जिन्होंने एक मुकाम हासिल किया है। 12th क्लास में तीनों साइंस विषय में 90% से अधिक प्राप्त करने पर CSIR की ओर से 1 टाइम कैश अवार्ड। सबसे पहले सादर आमंत्रित करती हूँ मास्टर अभिजोय भट्टाचार्य, डॉक्टर आशीष भट्टाचार्य के सुपुत्र। उज्जवल भविष्य के लिए जोरदार तालियों से उत्साहवर्धन करिए। हमारी शुभकामनाएं उन बच्चों के भविष्य के साथ हैं। इसी श्रेणी में सादर आमंत्रित करती हूँ मास्टर तनिष्क भूषण चौधरी, डॉक्टर भूषण चौधरी जी के सुपुत्र। अच्छा, हाँ। इसके उपरांत जो अगली श्रेणी है, जो प्रतिष्ठित संस्थान IIT, IIM, एम्स इत्यादि में प्रवेश मिलने पर प्रति माह 1500 रुपये की स्टूडेंटशिप हमारे यहाँ से प्रदान की जा रही है। उसके लिए तनिष्क भूषण चौधरी को दूसरा पुरस्कार भी है। दोनों दे दो। और अंत में आमंत्रित करती हूँ कुमारी सुक्ला किरण माए, डॉक्टर GVN रत्ना की सुपुत्री। जोरदार तालियों से उत्साहवर्धन। सभी पुरस्कार प्राप्तकर्ताओं को हार्दिक हार्दिक बधाई, हार्दिक हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Dr. Chadha, for anchoring the event. We now come to the last but one of the most important part of the program, which is vote of thanks. As part of NCL named lecture committee, me and my colleagues will like to sincerely thank our chief guest, Shri Krish Gopalakrishnan, for gracing the occasion and delivering the CSR Foundation Day lecture. I'll now like to thank the whole team, Mr. Sunil Patel, Dr. Nikhilesh Yadav, Ms. Sonali, Mr. Ganesh Mane, Dr. Tejas Gaidankar, Mr. Hembade, Mr. Jagtap, Shri Avinash Teotale, Shri Sanjay Askar, Mr. Dayal Ram Saini, Mr. Ronaki, Mr. Mane, Mr. Phadke, Mr. Yogesh, Dr. Yogesh Mahajan, Dr. Sunita Bharve, Mr. Gati Nayak. Thank you all, all of them helped in making this event a success. Lastly but not the least, I want to thank you all for being present here today. I'll now request you all to stand up for the national anthem.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे
Thank you.